Tensions between the United States and Iran have increased significantly in the past 24 hours after the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani announced that if Europe did not make up for the recent loss of the United States from the previous nuclear deal, and if they did not come around in 2 months and begin compensating for the loss of the United States, then Iran would take the third stage measures against the agreement. In other words, Iran have inside of the nuclear agreement is steps that Iran is allowed to take if one of the parties withdraws from the agreement in violation of it. In other words, what the United States has done now. So far, Iran has gone through stage one and stage two. Now, this third stage would be pretty significant because this would be what it is that the United States did not want Iran to actually do, and that's begin producing weapons grade uranium. Now, this is what it is according to some of the commentaries that I did here. Now, this is certainly something that the United States does not want. This is perhaps probably a red line for Washington. But in this situation, the United States has not lived up to its agreement with Iran. It has left the European signatories hanging in the breeze and responsible for making up for the loss of the U.S. as a trading partner, which is part of the agreement as well. The European signatories that signed on did agree to compensate Iran for the loss of the United States if they were to pull out. And this was part of what made this an agreement between what was called the P5 countries plus one. That's the basis of this, which is why Iran is involved. Well, the United States seems perfectly intent upon sabotaging whatever goodwill there can possibly be between the two countries. Now, only within the last 2 days or so, the United States has announced new sanctions against Iran's space program, which it accuses of being a testing ground for Iranian missile technology. Now, the testing of Iranian missiles, or even the development of missile technology, does not violate any standing agreement that Iran has signed with. It does not violate the nuclear agreement, and it does not violate any agreement that exists with the United Nations. This is purely something that the United States wants to block Iran from the development of defensive capabilities, most likely an invasion by either Israel or Saudi Arabia. Now, it's very interesting that the U.S. would choose to attack the space program and not the actual missile program in Iran itself. In other words, sanctioning the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, which is already being sanctioned, and the United States has already declared it to be a terrorist organization. It seems to me that the choice by the U.S. to target the space program is nothing more than a punishment measure for not bowing to U.S. will. Because as those who have been paying attention recently recall, Iran has decided that it is not going to come to the negotiating table until the U.S. releases all the sanctions. Now, the U.S. already wasn't at the table, but then we're demanding that Iran come back and sign a new agreement that would be even worse for them. And this is something that Iran didn't want to do. And then the United States accused Iran of not wanting to come to the table because there was already an agreement in place that Iran was already following. So Iran has now said that any further negotiations cannot be conducted until all the sanctions that the U.S. have been put on, that the U.S. have put in the country, have been completely removed. And if in the next 2 months the European signatories don't get together and compensate Iran for the loss of the U.S. trade or the results of the U.S. Sanctions, then Iran's going to take things to an even greater level. And then when we consider everything that's going on in the sort of Hormuz right now, this would increase tensions very significantly. But this situation is all on the shoulders of U.S. President Donald Trump and the United States for continuing this pressure campaign against Iran that was wholly unnecessary. There was an agreement in place, an agreement which I personally disagree with. I don't think Iran should ever have signed that agreement. I think they should have told the United States to go to hell and then develop whatever kind of technology that it is that they want for themselves, exercising their own self-determination. But given the kind of pressure that the U.S. can put on a country economically, I understand their choice for wanting to do so and essentially being forced into doing so. So, what Iran is trying to do is trying to find something to force the United States to just finally take responsibility for their actions, come to the negotiating table, hopefully just restore the deal that already exists, and everything can go back to what is considered relatively normal for this world. But what's important to keep in mind here is that none of this had to happen. All of this could have been avoided. The lack of medicines and food, etc., that Iran has had to suffer through, didn't have to happen. All of it was completely unnecessary, and all on the shoulders of the United States, who wanted to cause a destabilization of Iran, to use that to foment some kind of regime change, possibly through its MEK terrorist organization that it houses in Washington. But it's important to understand this situation and to understand that this has not had the destabilizing effect. It has certainly caused hardships. There is no doubt about that, but it has not caused the destabilization. Thus far, it seems the Iranian people are together for the most part in their struggle against what the United States is actually doing. This kind of destabilization and division effort does not seem to be working the same way inside of Iran that it is inside of Venezuela. Venezuela does have a very divided political situation right now. The majority is in support of Nicolas Maduro, but there is a great deal of opposition inside the country. This is not the case with Iran, who the population is definitely on the side of their own country, if not specifically that of Hassan Rouhani. And that's a basic rundown of the situation right now and possibly where it could lead in the future. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.